Welcome to Wine Soundtrack USA. Listen to the passion with which producers narrate their winery and their world in 30 answers. Discover their stories, personalities, and passions.
Hello, friends and listeners of Wine Soundtrack. This is Allison Levine, and today I'm in the Willamette Valley in Oregon, sitting with Tim and Kary Ramey of Zenith Vineyard. Welcome, Tim and Kary, and tell me a little bit, and our listeners, about Zenith Vineyard and yourselves.
Thanks, Allison. Well, we're happy to have you here at Zenith, which is in the Eola-Amity Hills AVA, a sub-AVA of the Willamette Valley. We're a 133-acre property with 83 acres planted to vine, primarily Pinot Noir, about 65 acres of Pinot Noir, but with 6 varieties in total, including Pinot Gris, Chardonnay, Tempranillo, Auxerrois, and Pinot Blanc.
I like how you throw the Auxerrois just on the side there. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what Auxerrois is?
Well, Auxerrois is our pet project for the Willamette Valley. It's a cool climate Alsatian varietal, grown in places like Alsace, but also around the Finger Lakes, Lake Michigan, Canada. And we think it does particularly well in Oregon. We've got about 3¼ acres. We make a varietal wine for the Zenith label, and of course we sell grapes to 3 or 4 others who do as well. So we're the Pied Pipers of Auxerrois.
Fantastic. And how many cases a year do you guys produce?
We're producing, between 1,000, 1,500, sometimes 2,000 cases.
So a really small local winery. Now tell me, what is your first memory relevant to wine? And I don't know if this is something individually or is a shared memory that you both may have.
Well, I think both Tim and I had a memorable wine epiphany. We were living on the East Coast, but we're Seattle natives, and we were happily back in our Seattle hometown and out to dinner and had a bottle of Leonetti Cellars Cabernet, and just looked at each other and said, wow, Washington State is making this wine. And we enjoyed our dinner, we thanked our friends, we departed, and we immediately went to all the local grocery stores and bought every bottle of Leonetti Cellars Cabernet that we could get our hands on and shipped it back to the East Coast. It was a wine that we understood, that we loved, and we were intimidated by the French wine lists on the East Coast, and loved to entertain, and felt like this was something we had a personal story with. So I think that's where we started, and that's where we started collecting and building the cellar.
And this was in about 1986 or 87, when you could still find Leonetti Cellar in a QFC or a Safeway. No more.
So that would also be one of the most memorable wines you've drunk, or is there another wine that stands out as sort of one of the most memorable special wines you've ever had?
Well, we're big fans of the Rhone. We love Chateau Beaucastel, so we have a lot of Beaucastel in our cellar, and I don't know that that's a specific epiphany, but it's a big wine for us. Let's see, on my 50th birthday, we opened a 1958 Chateau Yquem that was a pretty special bottle of wine, so that might have been the one that I would think of.
Yeah, but the wine that got us started with our vineyard was finding Mark Vlasic and St. Innocent Winery and the O'Connor Vineyard. And that was our pathway to buy this beautiful place. We bought the O'Connor Vineyard, but we had been collecting the wine from this place for many years before we found out we could possibly own it ourselves.
Fantastic. So traveling the world abroad, what is the best foreign wine you've ever drunk?
Let's see. Probably Côte d'Estournel would be. We had a fantastic lunch with Jean-Guillaume Prats, where we had some amazing Côte d'Estournel from
and it
his
could
cellar.
Have been the food.
Yeah.
It could have been the food. It was probably the wine.
Yeah.
Do you remember the worst wine you've ever drunk?
No,
we don't.
You try and forget that quickly.
Among all the populations in the world, who do you think drinks the best wine in terms of quality?
I would say the French. I think, although the wines that the average French person drinks on an average day are pretty average wines. They have more interesting wines available to them than we'll ever see.
Do you guys have a cellar where you collect wine?
We do. We have probably 2,500 bottles in our personal cellar. Obviously, we keep a lot of wine in the winery as well. But yeah, and it's mainly focused on 3 or 4 regions. Oregon, obviously, Châteauneuf-du-Pape, Bordeaux, a little bit of Burgundy, not very much, and Washington State, and a little bit of California Pinot Noir. So,
And is there a particular wine that's giving you the most satisfaction right now?
I oftentimes tell people the best reason to have a cellar is so that you can be drinking 10-year-old Pinot Noir, because 10-year-old Pinot Noir is very different from Pinot Noir on release. And so, we've had some amazing Pinot Noirs recently that wouldn't have blown you away when they were released, but 10 years of bottle age, they become pretty special.
Yeah, they kind of grew into their own.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a such thing as a perfect variety?
No. I think Pinot Noir is far from the perfect variety. I mean, it's a very difficult variety.
Yeah, it throws a lot of personality. It has a lot to say about the place, the terroir, the vintage, the climate. So I think that's why we are so enamored with working with this grape, because it throws so much personality. Having said that, I think the wines of the world at this point are complex, interesting, and dynamic. I don't think there's a staid industry out there that is going to be saying it's always this way or no way. I think it's a movable feast at this point.
What is your opinion on wine critics and scores?
Useful. and sometimes annoying, but scoring is fun. It's a game. I think that at the end of the day, you're always after your own truest critic. You know your place. You know what you had to work with. You know if you came up with something that you're proud of, or if maybe not. And I think that it's fabulous and fun when the critics agree with you.
So, talking about as wine consumers, what do you guys prefer, red, white, or rosé?
On which time of the day?
Okay, sparkling or still wine?
Sparkling.
Still.
And regarding sparkling, champagne or from somewhere else?
Oh, definitely here. I've got to say, I definitely am a huge champagne drinker, love sparkling wine, and know that Oregon is just on the cusp of having an amazing new impact in this industry.
There's, if you went back 10 years, there might have been 5 or 8 producers of sparkling in Oregon, and now there's probably 50 to 75. And people are really doing it well. And it's exciting. I would say probably the 2 most exciting categories in Oregon right now are Chardonnay and sparkling. Yeah, everybody loves Pinot Noir, and that's the workhorse, but there's a lot of really interesting news being made in Chardonnay and sparkling wine.
So we just finished a lovely dinner that took us through some different flavors and then some different wines. And when it comes to food and wine pairing, do you guys believe in following the rules, white wine, fish, red wine, meat, or do you like to mix it up? And how do you feel those rules apply?
Well, I'm the cook in the family for the most part, and so I'm always after the compliment. So I'm constantly looking for acids. I'm constantly looking for flavor, for tannins. Are we roasting? Are we braising? Are we flash sauteing? Is it a lean vegetable-driven flavor? So these are the things that you want to play with when you're drinking wine. Having said that, please, there's just no hard rule. It really is what you like. So start putting some wines in front of you with what you are serving, and then have your own opinion.
What do you think a non-drinker loses out by not tasting your wine?
Well, it depends on why they're non-drinking. So I'm going to bow to anybody that's doing it for medical or serious reasons that they should not be drinking. And having said, we're going to put those people aside and saying a non-drinker is, I just think the breadth of the palate is complemented by having wine.
We do, as you've heard, a lot of events here, and I just had a bride who came back and she said, I was not a person who enjoyed wine until we got married here, and I really learned some things about your wines. And that's very satisfying to think that you played some little role on their wine walk that hopefully goes someplace interesting and enhances the enjoyment of their life.
Well, I think so much is about the story and knowing the people behind it, the place. And I think when you can connect people to that, it makes a huge difference in how wine tastes.
And I think a wine much more is a food group than something that you're not sprinkling more salt on something. You're basically broadening the breadth of your palate by adding wine to your meal. Or to your experience. And so that's really how we approach it, and that's why it's such an integral part of our lives.
So if space aliens were to land here, what wine would you give them?
What kind of planet did they come from? Salty, sweet?
Do we want them to stay or go away?
I'm asked that every single time I ask that question. That's up to you. I think you want them to stay.
Well, are they veggies? Are they vegetarian? Are they, non-dairy? We really do ask a lot of questions of people before we try to impress them with whatever wine we're having to offer. So it really is a TBD. We're going to have to ask some questions before we present them with anything. And again, Tim's got a good point. Do we want them to stay or do we want them to go?
If there was one wine you wanted to show off to them, what would it be?
Chardonnay to pop.
Oh, okay.
Of my own.
Our one, yeah.
Sure. Well, Chardonnay to pop is a great answer.
Yeah. I mean, that's always...
Our method Champenois. I think it's always festive. It should always start the meal and end the meal. So.
And I would say our Pinot Noir. Just because I think that's why people come to Oregon, is they want to learn about your Pinot Noir.
So we're in the middle of harvest right now, and we're in a new vintage. And they say that every vintage tells a different story. Do you think that there are more things that repeat themselves or not in any given vintage from year to year?
It's an interesting question, because I would have said that 2014 through 2018 it's a string of years that is pretty similar in a lot of ways. We had essentially perfect weather for all summer long for all of those years. So Oregon's been very blessed for many years in a row. Having said that, it didn't rain in Oregon for 95 days this year. That's pretty significant. And so as I drive around delivering grapes to wineries and going by lots of other vineyards, I'm like, I'm not the only one that has stressed vines right now. So there's some characteristics in this vintage that will evolve from stress, from water stress, and I don't know what those are going to be like.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to find out what that brings us. And so that is a vintage characteristic that we're going to be looking for, and we just don't know yet.
Because in Oregon, we don't farm the way they do in Eastern Washington or in California, where they have essentially unlimited water and they can just turn on the tap. We don't do that. We're mostly dry farmed here. We have a little bit of water, and it's really sort of break glass for emergencies only kind of thing.
I like how you say California just turns on the faucet when it's been in a drought for 9 years, but...
They, in fact, still do, yes.
Do you have any good luck rituals for when harvest is about to start?
We try not to argue. We try to start out harvest on a very positive note and keep everybody working in the right direction. And, whatever Tim's decisions are that's it. When the grapes get picked, when they get trucked, what our schedule is, that's Tim's business. I'm supposed to be support. I'm going to be doing cooking. I'm going to be inviting people in. We've got house guests. That's my job. We try to stick to our jobs, and we try to complement each other and not step on each other's toes.
And do you have any signs or omens that you look for each year that predicts the outcome of harvest, such as not fighting and it'll be a perfect harvest?
I think it's much more weather related.
Yeah, no, I would say weather dictates my mood quite a bit. If you talked to me 10 days ago, it was raining hard in Oregon, and I was not very happy. And then it became glorious, and the grapes went sort of a quantum leap forward, in a matter of a few days, really. So right now I'm feeling pretty rosy about how the 2018 harvest will come out.
What you don't want as a farmer is you don't want pressure to pick. So anytime that we do not have an instantaneous pressure, we have 20, how many clients?
22.
22 wineries that are all deciding when to pick. And so guess what? We've got a couple trucks and so many pickers, and you basically want to spread that out over a decent and manageable amount of time. And if you start to get wedged in by weather, it starts to get extremely stressful to get the grapes off and get them moved to the wineries. Those are the kinds of things that freak out farmers, and that's what we don't want. So this type of weather is like everybody gets very cheerful. The wineries can work at an even pace, we can work at an even pace, and so it makes everybody very cheerful.
Yeah, we like sunshine and nice temperate weather.
Nice temperate, yeah.
So many producers walk in their own cellars and speak to their wine in the barrels. Do you guys walk into your cellar? Do you talk to your wine? And if so, what do you say to it?
I'm learning that we're just not superstitious enough. No, I don't talk to the wines. I breathe sighs of relief when they're all barreled down, and happy to have them resting comfortably in the cellar.
And we really enjoy, since we run such a big wedding and events business, our brides and grooms love to take pictures in the barrel room. It's a very social place. People are very happy when they walk in there, and I think that probably, if there's any juju that goes down with wine, I think running a wedding and events business is the way to go.
And our cellar is right below our ballroom.
Yeah.
So you have to think that the at least once a week playing of the Macarena song or Shout would have some impact on the wines. However, we're not sure if it's positive or negative.
So I know you're not superstitious, but one more question sort of in that vein. You can be a little more creative here. Some people read tea leaves at the bottom of a cup. If you could read the bottom of a red wine glass, what would you want it to reveal?
That we're thoughtful, and that we're loving, and that we're kind, and that we have some wisdom with what we've been given to care for. That's the acknowledgement that I'm looking for.
Yeah, I think of we put this on our labels, and we actually believe it as well, which is we're the caretakers of this place for a period of time. And it's our job to make it a better place in our lifetime than it was when we took over. And it was a pretty special place when we took over. So we're just trying to do the best we can for the land, which then does something for the wine.
I think that's beautiful. So when you guys were little, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a ballerina.
I think I wanted to be maybe something in finance, and I became that.
You lived up to your dreams.
Yes.
So, and I know you still work in finance when you're not out in the vineyard picking picking your grapes.
And I still dance whenever the music plays.
So you're living your dreams. And aside from dancing and working in finance, when you're not working, how else do you spend your free time?
Oh, goodness. So many fun things. Busy in the community, busy with family. We have a wonderful, vibrant family, 4 grandchildren, the garden, everything that has to do with the wedding and events facility here with all the maintenance and interior design work that I do. So that's my fun space that I get to play in when I'm not, knuckles to the grind.
And we love to ski, and winters are a good time to get away from Oregon.
Yeah.
I think I skied 20 days last winter, which I was happy with. Maybe try to exceed that this year, but yeah.
So for a really romantic evening, what is the wine that you would order?
I would say a Bordeaux. I mean, a great Bordeaux would, to me, be something special. And a romantic evening should be something special.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys have a favorite movie about wine?
Well, certainly Sideways has to be the favorite movie for anybody in the Pinot Noir business because it launched Pinot Noir single-handedly. I mean, Sideways came out in 2004, and prior to Sideways, Pinot Noir was just another 1 or 2% varietal in the world. As Mike Mondavi told me one time, the movie taught 40 million people how to say Pinot Noir, and therefore they would order it. And it had a similar but negative effect on Merlot. And that persisted for years. And if you look at consumer scanner data or other statistical data, Pinot Noir has grown at a double-digit rate ever since. Merlot might be back to growth, but it was at a double-digit declines for years. So that was a extremely powerful movie in both directions.
What was the best piece of advice you ever received?
I'm not sure this was advice, but sort of a instructional thing was that Robert Mondavi formed Robert Mondavi Winery when he was 54. Mm-hmm. And to me, we got involved in this vineyard in operation when we were 43, I think. And so we were like, we have a head start on... It's not totally true. Robert Mondavi was involved in the wine business his entire life. But it's very instructive to me that he created what he created in the second half of his life.
And so if you were going to give us some advice, what would that be?
Well, drink often and drink well, and try to always listen to the story. I think the preconception that people walk in with wines is more damaging than helpful. I think that enjoying the experience, taking that wine and having it with food will truly give you the answer of, is this what I like? And is this what I want? Not who said what, who's saying what, or, what's the score, or all those other criterion. I think that you take that information, but you form your own opinion.
So what would you say is your proudest achievement to date?
Oh, my. Well, first of all, I got to say my family. So it goes without saying, but we are extremely proud of our work. I am extremely proud of our work, and I wanted to do this wedding and events business, and it's been very successful, and that has been super satisfying. And I just love the people. I love the people that come. I'm a people person. They come, they enjoy, they party, they have a great time. And that's very, very satisfying. And I think Tim has a different answer.
Yeah, being a finance person, one of the things I wanted to do was have a financially successful wine business, which is not always the case. And I think partly because of Kary's concept of getting into the events business, We have a really successful business financially, and it doesn't look like anybody else's wine business. It's our own creation. We don't do a lot of things that everybody else does that we probably should be doing. We talked earlier, we don't have a wine club. We should.
Jen's going to do it.
Yes. By the time this airs, you will have a wine club.
Yes, most likely.
So complete the sentence for me. A table without wine is like?
Like somebody else's house.
If a VIP was photographed at a restaurant, and through the window, the paparazzi takes the photo, and through the window, there's a bottle of your wine sitting on the table, what wine would you want that to be?
Oh, I think I would want it to be our Pinot Noir. I would, because it really is our anchor. It is our most prestigious wine that we produce. And not to say that won't be circumvented by another varietal. We're still working on those, but the Pinot Noir is so centric to what we're doing.
Do you think we'll still be drinking wine in 300 years, 500 years, 1,000 years from now?
It's probably the best constant that we have, other than just eating food.
We drank wine before we drank water.
Yeah.
You have to understand that there was wine before there was water as a beverage.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, the answer is
we're confident.
Still gonna exist.
Name 3 wines you would take with you to a deserted island.
Oh.
That's hard. There's no ice, right?
Rules out sparkling.
Yeah. You think a deserted island would definitely want a cold beverage, but
it's your imaginary island, so
it's your imaginary island with an ice cave. So I when I think of a deserted island, I do think of a hot place. And so we have gone to the Caribbean. We've done bear boating before, and we know that there's huge. It definitely is more white wine than red wine centric. And so I guess my brain definitely goes toward much more a high acidic Chardonnay, crisp white wines. Obviously, I would never go anywhere without our sparkling wine. So that's...
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. When we go to Hawaii, which is not a desert island, but we might only drink Chardonnay. Mm-hmm. And so something like a David Ramey, Zenith Vineyard 2015, which I just bought a case of. That's something I'd want with me on a desert island.
Okay, we're going to keep that wine in mind in 1 second, but I wanted to ask you, what is one winemaking area in the world you would still like to explore?
New Zealand.
Tasmania.
Yeah, and really in the same bent, yes.
Fantastic. So we play one little game here called Wine Soundtrack. Music plays a big role in our lives, and there's a big correlation between wine and music. So a lot of times when you drink wine, you listen to music, or it conjures up sort of, a mood. Mm-hmm. So going back to that Ramey wine, or the Rocchioli that you just bought, what song does it conjure up, or what would you want to listen to while you're drinking?
Oh, well, so something like Phil Collins' Coming in the Air Tonight, with just an enormous drum, track and guitar riffs. Yeah.
And Kary, what would you want to be drinking with your sparkling wine?
Oh, all of the nostalgic Carly Simon stuff I just absolutely adore. So champagne to me is always bringing up memories of family, of celebration, and like I said, the beginning of the meal, the end of the meal, it's something that starts an occasion and finishes an occasion. So I think that all those very heartfelt songs by Carly are awesome with that.
And for your Rhone wines that you love so much, Côte de Rhone, what would you want to be? What does that conjure up?
Maybe Led Zeppelin, I would think, yeah.
Okay, that's a good one to end on.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you both for joining us today. And if you can just quickly remind people where they can find you, how they can find your wines, and where they can find you online, in fact.
We're Kary and Tim Ramey, and we are at zenithvineyard.com. Our website, zenithvineyard.com. And our wines are only available online, so you'll have to direct order from us. Come visit us. We're right outside of Salem, Oregon, in the Willamette Valley, and we're very easy to find. We have an excellent website with contact information there.
Thank you guys so much. Cheers.
All right.
Thank you, Allison.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to a new episode of Wine Soundtrack USA. For details and updates, visit our website, winesoundtrack.com.